architects are notoriously averse while they're in school, student architects, I would say, myself included, to actually hearing about the business part of things. When I became the dean at Yale, I saw to it that the business class, the professional practice class had actually been optional at Yale, which was ridiculous and also illegal in the sense that the accrediting board insists you take it. But there's a wonderful man who went to Yale Architecture School and then Yale College before that, and then worked for 20 years for Caesar Pelli, named Phil Bernstein. He was teaching the class, and Phil is very tall, very commanding figure, and 20 years experience at Caesar Pelli doesn't hurt him from the point of view of his authority. And so we sat down, and I said, well, what should we do? And he said, these people don't really want to come to class and so forth. And I said, it's not an option. And so we changed that, and he just, does it. And students, I've noticed, students have gradually, over these past 15 years, become more and more responsive to what he does, to the point where he even gives an advanced elective course, and students sign up for it. I think there is a sea change. I think there's more of a recognition that architecture is an art, but it's also a professional practice.
Right. Well, do you think that we're doing our students justice by not teaching them enough on the business side?
Well, architecture school is only 3 years now after college at Yale. It's a postgraduate program. It's a graduate program. When I went to school, it was 4 years. Architecture has so much more in the way of content that each student has to master today than what I had to master in my time, that I think we can't overload them. We can open people's minds to the realm of things they need to be wary of and attentive to. But you can't teach them everything.
Right. But, I do think that, the more you teach them, obviously, the better professionals we'll have out there. And it rises, all ships rise in a rising tide.
Yep.
And if if they're taught that way, then they're bringing so much more to the profession from the beginning.
Well, I think, the image of an architect or any designer as a kind of ditz is not very good.
Or starving artists, let's put it that way.
Starving. Oh, artists are not starving. Artists, no. Artists out of someplace like the Yale School of Art, immediately, first of all, they want $100,000 for their first painting. And second of all, they have an agent or they have a dealer. Second year of the art program, it's a 2-year program, all the dealers from New York come up and they look at the work and you get a dealer and the dealer takes care of all the business and so forth. No, it's the architects, as Jack Robertson once said, who had a big business meeting, are the ones who are always arguing for the lowest fee.
Right.
So there is a naivete in the profession, there's no question about it. Not a problem with interior decorators and designers. They charge ridiculous fees.
Would anybody like to speak up on that? So. Yeah, I think it's the tangible side of design. You can touch and feel it. You'll pay $14,000 for this chair, right?
Not me.
So you have a 250-person practice now.
Yeah, plus or minus.
In order to build something that big, you have to be good at delegation. You have to trust the people under you.
Absolutely.
How did you do that?
Well, I was always teaching, which in the beginning days of my teaching, as I recall it, studios met at Columbia 3 afternoons a week. So every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I was out the door at like 12:45 or something like that to get to class. Well, the place has to go on.
Right.
And so you always try to hire the best possible people you can. Of course, one of the things about teaching, if you teach in a good place, is you see very bright, talented people, and so you try to scarf them up. You have to delegate, and it's a collaborative process. The idea that you sit by yourself and draw buildings and do all the technical documents and deal with the clients and go to the construction site and all of that, it's naive. It's not possible.
Right.
Not possible. So you have to be able to delegate. You have to have a good ego. So that when everybody says they designed your buildings, you just say, yeah, that's they want to believe that. That's fine. But then you never hear from them again. It's okay. Yes, you have to delegate, and you have to collaborate, work together. I don't mean just the collaboration between an architect and engineers or lighting designers and decorators and all that, which are essential. But you have to collaborate among other architects in your office, and even practice today. Many firms, such as ours, do the design and design development, schematic design development, and then hand off the work to other offices who do the technical documents. Because if we have large projects, but if we had to have all the technical people working on them necessary to realize the projects, we'd have 500 people, which would be a real horror, in my opinion. So there's collaboration between firms.
Right. Well, so collaboration, I mean, that's a word that I use all the time. And when I think back at education in the schools, you're sort of taught, keep your project like this and then present it to the world. But it is a very collaborative profession. And do you think the schools are teaching that?
Well, I can't speak for the schools. I can only speak for Yale. Yeah, we do emphasize it. In the first year of the architecture school program, and after the spring break, students design, over a weekend, each student is asked to design a single-family house for a site, a specific site in New Haven, usually in a disadvantaged neighborhood. And then the faculty puts together the various designs into groups of 10 students where the design is more or less in the same direction. Then those students work together to prepare a design and even some technical documents, and then they present them to the faculty, usually we've worked with Common Ground or other nonprofits, even sometimes to a future homeowner. Usually these houses are for people who've never owned a house before. And then one scheme gets picked. And then the students all have to work together to build the scheme. So they automatically have to have collaborative, they automatically participate in the collaborative process. And we give them classes, tutorials in how to collaborate. The people from the School of Management come over and so forth. So we take it very seriously. But even when I went to architecture school, you never worked on a project at Yale, and I don't think it was so different anywhere else, with another student. It was your project, you did it, and that was it. Now, most advanced studio projects, the last year when all the fancy visiting critics come in, many of those projects are team projects of 2. And even in some of what we call the core of the curriculum, there are pairs of students. So already students are working with their equals, that's the key, on a common goal, toward a common goal.
That's great to hear. So your office is made up of multiple disciplines now. So you have an interiors practice, you have product design. Is that something that you
Landscape architecture.
And landscape. Was that something you encouraged to happen, or did other people?
Well, when we were doing almost exclusively houses or residential work, we took a very active role in interiors, and we still do interiors for some of our projects, although we recognize that house clients often have emotional relationships with their decorators, and we don't want to come between those two people. And so that works fine. I'm interested in principle. I used to be interested in reality in decoration, but I don't have time to do that too much, although I do still review interiors that come out of the office. A house, we never show, I'm going back to houses as the core, we never draw a house plan or without showing the furniture in it. I mean, how is the room going to be furnished? We never put show a client a new house design without putting it on a site. Where's the driveway going to be? Where might a garden be? Where might a swimming pool be? Where might this and that be? So we're always involved in the next largest things and the next smallest things at the same time. So it's an integral process. But we do have an interiors design department, but we don't take on interiors as a rule, almost never, for things we haven't designed ourselves. We're not in the business of being interior designers per se.
Right.
It's a service to our clients.
So that they would never go after a project on their own, is what you're saying?
No, they'd like to, but I don't let them.
Okay.
It was
And then-
great with 15 Central Park West because I bent the rule. Anybody who bought an apartment there wanted us to do their apartment. It was fine, so we could remodel our own work.
Yeah.
That was okay.
Good.
We did quite a few.
And then what brought you to do product development?
In the 1980s, I guess there was something happening in the air, in the water, or whatever. But for one thing, Addie Powell and Nan Swid started a company called Swid Powell, and they had the idea, sort of inspired, I suppose, a little bit like by the Bauhaus and the Wiener Werkstätte, that architects and others could design products. People couldn't afford to build a house by Bob Stern or Richard Meyer, but they could have an ashtray. Well, not an ashtray, we didn't do those. Lampsticks, candlesticks, or other so-called tabletop items. And that was quite an interesting period, and we had a lot of fun because all the architects, somebody persuaded Nan and Addie that they should have juries like we have in architecture school. So you could have all the architects sitting here in a room that Knoll had downtown, and Richard Meyer would be presenting his candlesticks, or Jim Polshek or whatever, and we'd all crit them. And that was funny and fun. And that was not taped, which was probably just as well. And then there were Sheets, Fieldcrest, and other companies were interested in, I don't think the phrase thread count had become such a basic thing then. I think they thought that you marketed sheets on how they looked, not on how many threads they had. But anyhow, so we did sheets, and a man named Steve Croter emerged, and he's been advising us on this, and it's kind of fun. It's just another scale of things, and we can do them very quickly. Buildings take so long. Even when everything's going perfectly, a house can take, well, I better not say so in case there's a potential client in the room because I'll scare them away. I mean, they take longer than people think they do. And a big project, a complicated project in a university, whatever, can take 5-7 years from the time you're hired until the time the ribbon is cut. So it's nice to do fabrics or other small things. So it's fun. And then it's nice, also fun to spec your own stuff in a building or in a garden. So that's great.
That's great. And I think that, bringing product to life and bringing your projects to life through all that products really helps. I think it helps communicate, true value in design. But it's one question that we are dealing with daily is, does the consumer really understand the value of design? What's your thought on that?
Some do and some don't. But I don't know. I mean, we don't. Most of the things we've designed, we haven't gotten to Kmart yet,
Right.
or Target. It's where we're really where other like Martha Stewart or Michael Graves were really embedded in the world of mass consumerism. Most of our work has been for companies that basically sell to the trade, except for Swid Powell, where they had a section in Bloomingdale's when Bloomingdale's China department was a big place. But young people don't buy anything anymore that has any. I mean, they may buy things that look good, but they don't. Brides don't go and buy bridal china anymore.
Right.
Oh, it's so sad.
Yeah. Every day is what they're after, not the fine china.
Yeah, I think the next wedding I'm going to, I'm just going to give them styrofoam cups.
Well, I think you may be aware of this, but I've been putting on a conference every year that actually Gary and Roger from your office came to in Marrakesh.
Yeah.
And the year prior, we were in Copenhagen, and we had 200 people, and we broke everybody into 10 groups of 20 people. And we said, we didn't give them any instructions, and we said, we want one question answer from you, which is, what do you think is the number one thing plaguing our industry right now? And then we're going to give you 3 minutes to present one at a time. And 3 minutes to give a designer to present anything is impossible. But they all came up one by one and had the exact same answer. And that was, how do we communicate the value of design to the consumer so that they understand paying for our services makes sense? And I think that's our work ahead of us in a big way, especially pricing models and fees and just making sure that it's not at all a do-it-yourself world.
Well, when you say the value of design, I probably think of something different from what you're thinking of. I think the value of something that is well designed, qua design. Mm-hmm. You're thinking of how can you convince them of the value of the services to make the design.
I think you're right.
It's a little different.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's a lot, certainly people must be interested in design. Even though magazines are tanking all over the place, there are more so-called shelter magazines than ever. My God, there's endless. So people must be looking at them and reading them and drooling over things or whatever, so they're interested in it.
I think the interest is quite high. I think it's higher than it's ever been. So earlier on, you had mentioned Gerald Hines. Mm-hmm. Would you say, or is there any moment that you would say was a real turning point for your career?
Well, there are many. I mean, there are some important turning points. When Jerry Hines got his partners to hire me to do this office building, which then led to other office buildings for Hines and then other developers who took the sign that if Gerald Hines, who's one of the top developers, was willing to trust me, well, they could do that too. So that's a turning point. When Related was holding a competition for a building, Related is a New York developer of residential, which was really entering the market of high-end rentals and then ultimately condominiums, but it had been, its history had been building more or less affordable, so-called affordable housing. And Related got involved with the building that's at the bottom of Union Square, which has that thing that blows stuff out of.
Right.
And they had a competition, and they had the site, and the Municipal Art Society persuaded them that they should have a competition for the design, and I competed against another firm, shall be nameless. They got the job. I had a better building, but had no track record to doing apartment buildings. Mm-hmm. But I will say that David Wine and Steve Ross are Related. David is not there anymore, but liked the way we went about the whole thing. And then they gave us another project, and another, and another, and another.
Right.
So those are turning points. Now we're doing things in China. We did one project for a company in China, it's still under construction, but we've been working on it, I think, more or less for 5 years. And they liked it so much that they gave us other things, and then they pass our name to other companies there because there's so much work in China, at least at the moment. So those are our turning points. Mm-hmm. But
was 15 Central Park West, is that a Related project?
No, that's for the Zeckendorfs.
That's Zeckendorf, okay.
That's a turning point of another kind. I mean, we've been doing quite a few apartment houses and some quite high-end, like the Chatham, which was for Related's first condominium and was the first condominium in New York that broke $1,000 a square foot. That sounds cheap today, and that was only in the year 2000. Now, things are a little steeper. But anyhow, 15 Central Park West, which we competed against Cesar Pelli, but we were hired for our designs. Pelli had just done the Beacon Court building, the so-called Bloomberg building. And then we thought we had a good design, and our clients thought we had a good design, and we all thought it would be a success. But I don't think anybody thought it was going to be the kind of success it was. It is. And so that, of course, has given us international standing as people who don't think if they hire us, we can get 80 apartments that will sell for $88 million. Well, it doesn't always work that way, but we don't dissuade them. from the fact that we might be able to do that for them.
Right.
So those things happen, yes, of course, of course.
So, do you think your relationship with Michael Eisner changed anything?
Yeah, yes, yes. Well, Mike, that was fun because, yes, we did a lot of buildings for Disney. I was on the board. Michael was very interested in architecture. I had his ear. A couple other people did too, but I certainly did, and I was influential in selecting architects and for various projects. So, made me a little bit of a power broker, which I wasn't against. We also did houses for Michael Eisner. I'd done his mother and father's when they'd given up their big apartment on Park Avenue for a small apartment on 66th Street. I did that as a commission very early on in my career. So we had this long, strange relationship. So, yeah, Michael Eisner was extremely important.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to sit here and talk about my clients.
No.
They're all wonderful.
Well, speaking of clients, do you, and not to be specific, but do clients require you on their projects ever?
Not anymore. I think that they're almost happy I don't show up. I'm in trouble changing things. Yeah, when you're a young architect, they want to see you. But now, I mean, I work very hard to try to advance my partners who are very good architects and with whom I've been working for 25 years. And if they deserve, they do lead projects. And they in turn have people are working with them. We have studios in our office, so they're the kind of little pyramids of organization, if you will. But I go to the projects from time to time, but I'm not on the job when it's under construction, and I never go there without the partner in charge or somebody else. I say, what's going on?
They slip you little notes.
Yeah. But I am involved. But what I do in the office is I am the initiator with a partner of any design. Or sometimes a partner in a little team. We sit around. That's what I do. Every half hour when I'm in the office, I see a new project. And then I keep monitoring the projects for quality control. And some projects sometimes get off track, at least as I see them as getting off track. And I put them back on track. And that's, in my view, the best use of my time and whatever talent I might have.
That's good. Through the years, what do you think you've seen? When you look at the profession of architecture, what changes do you think have been fairly significant?
Well, there's so many kind of obvious ones. The role of the computer and whether the computer is a form of a drafting aid, which is the way it started as it entered architecture, whether it is a actual generator of form. We don't take that position in our office, but certainly many faculty do at Yale and many architects do believe that buried in that idiot box there's some idea. I don't think so, frankly, or it's not an idea I'm particularly interested in. But that I could change that if I was confronted with a project that really required highly advanced computational design. So typically we don't do those kinds of projects. So the computer is very important. I still think, and we still do design projects in our office the way we were designing them in 1970. We make a little sketch, we draw it up, we still have scales, we maybe even have a triangle every now and again. We don't have T-squares anymore, we don't. We then make models. I love to make clay models, sculpting clay, which is what Lou Kahn used and which architects used in the 1920s and probably way before then. So we take a kind of model and shape things and carve them, and I can twist them around, and we can make a bunch of them. If you went to my office, you'd see hundreds of them all over the place. We save them, and we go that way. So we are using we have all the latest bells and whistles of computer land, but we're still doing architecture in the traditional way, which I still think produces a better product. Certainly a better product
Right.
for the goals we have.